So one of the most common questions that I get asked when I'm streaming Dead by Daylight is whether or not I think that this game is getting better, whether or not Dead by Daylight is now in a better spot than some time ago. As someone that has been playing this game for many years and has seen some of the lowest points of DBD, I can pretty confidently say that Dead by Daylight is overall getting better. Most of the new patches and new changes make the game a little bit more balanced, give it a little bit more variety, and overall strive towards the correct direction. And yet, lately, I can't help but feel that DBD is one of the least fun experiences it's ever been for me. We have the very amazing 2v8 game mode going on right now. And the game modes that have this seasonal theme to it that you play for a little while, don't get me wrong, they're pretty fun. I've enjoyed playing the 2v8 Survivor with my viewers. It's a super fun experience. And then when I play Killer, there is a 15-minute queue, and this is horrible. If you are a streamer, it's really not feasible to wait for 15 or 20 minutes for then a match that might last five minutes. It's really not very sustainable. So I decided, you know what, let's just play the classic Dead by Daylight. Let's go back to the one before non-event mode. I'm going to be recording some matches for a video. I played about 40 games. Most of them were me playing without a HUD to get pretty footage for my tier list, and also a few matches were me with basic beginner builds because I was trying to record a tutorial, right? So I went into these matches not particularly interested in winning, just trying to record pretty footage. And my stats in these matches were unbelievably depressing. In more than half the games, I'm looking at it right now, we had map offerings from the survivors. The map offerings often send you to Autohaven or perhaps more commonly Macmillan offerings. These realms are currently bugged and you sometimes get more safety in these maps than you should. There was a rule that tried to make the maps a bit more balanced by limiting the amount of times the same tile could spawn. This has been bugged and survivors seem to really want to go to this map. So in more than half the games, I was sent to a map offering. And even though it's only one map out of like 40, I played on the Eyrie of Crows in literally 1/4 of my games. That is absolutely insane. Survivors have such an obsession sending me to this map. I don't know why. Either way, another thing that I saw very common is that the very strong items, things like BMPs, syringes, styptics, they now get used in almost 40% of the matches. And you might think, well, you know, going to a map offering every other match, having one syringe every other time, that's not such a big deal. I'm now noticing that these things always come together. Like it's never one thing or the other. Now you get map offerings, you get survivors with very, very strong items. And whenever these things don't happen, there's also a really good chance that survivors will just give up because the game didn't go their way. People giving up and making matches really uninteresting is still, sadly, quite common. Now, I know what you're thinking. Did he just change his shirt mid-video? The answer is yes, but the other thing that you're thinking is, isn't the 2v8 game mode a temporary thing? When it's over, aren't all of the casual players just gonna flood back to the normal game mode and then things will be average again? The answer to that is yes, but it's not gonna last forever. Eventually, we'll get another game mode that creates the same problem, and even if we don't, the player base is simply going to start to unlock more and more stuff. Right now, one of the things that keeps the gameplay a little bit more interesting, the game's a little bit less sweaty, and the variety a little bit more wild is the fact that people are still leveling up. For example, if you're a survivor and you're leveling up your blood web, you might get one strong item every now and then, but not enough to play them every single match. However, when you get to Prestige 100, if you've never seen it, it looks like this. You get blood webs with very high rarity items. And then when you level up, you get another exactly the same type of blood web, level 50 blood web, again with very strong high rarity items. You can basically, if you're a bit lucky, use one of these items every single match forever. And since survivors are all skins of each other, unless you still have some archive left, there's nothing preventing you from doing this. On Killer, it is a little bit more complicated. Each killer has their own add-ons and offerings, they don't share them. But if you decide to specialize in one killer, like for example, I have a P100 Plague here, you could get strong add-ons and offerings every single blood web and stockpile them to a ridiculous degree. If I wanted to, I could play with the strongest Plague build, which would be really, really obnoxious for maybe hundreds and hundreds of games, and there would be nothing stopping me from doing that. Not only is there nothing stopping you, there's not anything even discouraging you from doing this. Quite on the contrary, when you play against when you play against opponents that are quite sweaty, you are very tempted to bring the best loadout possible. And some things right now stand out as being particularly problematic in the sense that they're going to become more and more popular. Let me talk about each of these issues and how I think it's going to get worse, but also how maybe we could prevent it. So the first issue is disconnections and giving up. This is something that has noticeably gotten worse over time. Despite having a DC penalty, people still quit all of the time. And one thing that I've noticed is that the people that quit are not necessarily new players. On the contrary, the more veteran the player, the more likely they are to quit. And the reason why is because they understand better than new players that quitting is completely free. If you kill yourself on the hook, even if you are throwing the game and making it impossible for your teammates, you have zero penalty whatsoever. And if you disconnect by, pulling the plug or exiting the match, yeah, you have a little penalty, but it's just 1 minute. It's pretty much over by the time you queue up again. And even if you do it once or twice every now and then, the penalty is just so unbelievably forgiving that a lot of people know they can just get away with it and they keep doing it. I do think more penalties should be applied and the options to kill yourself on hook early could be diminished. But I know that this is a very heavy and contested topic. I don't know exactly how to fix it. But one thing that would be really, really nice is to stop penalizing people after someone else has disconnected. If someone in the lobby has already DC'd, everybody else should be able to DC without a penalty. Outside their party, of course. You shouldn't be able to DC for free if your teammate, duo, Discord, or your survivor friends disconnects, right? But if someone outside of your party has disconnected, you should be able to DC from that match, and whatever little blood points you've earned, you keep them, right? And you don't get a penalty. That means that if someone gives up at 5 gens, the killer can DC and the other guys can DC, and in whichever order they want to, they can DC and they can all move on to the next match, and we're not stuck in a game that is super unfun. And if you want to, if you think you can win, you can still stay, right? But you're not going to be forced to play that. And if the killer DC, unless there are killer bots, obviously the game ends for everyone and nobody loses blood points after one person has given up. I think this is just pretty common sense. Map offerings are another thing that has been more and more prevalent recently. I don't think they've changed very much at all. People will use them to avoid going to indoor maps, which I can sympathize. People will use them to go to a map where their killer is easier, which I can somewhat understand. But it gets extremely lame to be sent to the same maps over and over and over again. Some people think that maps in DBD are the biggest balancing factor, and one side should not be able to constantly choose which map to go to. I will die on this hill. There are multiple ways you could fix this. The most elegant and beautiful would be to make all of the maps balanced and all of them fun and fair. And the developers I'm sure are doing their best, but we're not there yet. So until that happens, please limit map offerings. I think there's 2 ways you could do it relatively quickly. Number 1 would be to buff the green hand. This is an offering that cancels map offerings. You could make it so that if there's no map offering, this green hand doesn't get consumed. That means if you're someone like me that doesn't want to be sent to map offerings from other people's choices, I can use this every match, and if it doesn't get used, well, I use it again the next match. Maybe you could even have a little blood point bonus to all players so that if you see multiple green hands in your lobby, it's like a little feel-good moment. It's like, oh, I got some blood points for free. I didn't do anything. That could be nice, maybe. Another idea is to limit map offerings to some kind of condition. I thought in the past that maybe survivor fans shouldn't be able to use map offerings, but this does feel a bit unfair, especially for newer players. So how about map offerings only work at a certain grade/rank? When you reach the old rank 8, which is golden ranks, map offerings stop working altogether for all sides. This could be a way to make map offerings happen at the start of the season, which happens halfway through the month, when the new season comes out and everyone is grade 20, or grade, what is it called? Ash 4, the old rank 20. People can use map offerings and they can play on their favorite maps and they can do their achievements and their archives. They're obviously not going to remove map offerings. Some people need map offerings to do their specific map-specific achievements, like escaping RPD 20 times. I understand that. But then after people level up, you can't use them anymore. If you use a map offering and then you reach golden ranks, it stops working. If someone in your party is that rank, it stops working altogether. So that would be a really nice incentive for people that get better to, embrace the variety of maps. That would be one way to do it. Let me know what you think or if you have a better solution for them. Next issue is medkits. Now, let me be clear, all of the items on the survivor side are extremely outdated and all of them require some attention. Toolboxes haven't been changed in a very long time. Flashlights haven't really had anything new change about them or add-ons change about them in years. Keys and maps are really one-dimensional and boring and not very popular, right? But the thing about medkits is that they did get a rework relatively recently, and the rework, I think, it made them a bit weaker, but also it made them feel more necessary. We nerfed a lot of add-ons, right? We made a lot of add-ons less powerful for self-healing, but then we kept the syringe and the styptic in the game, even though they were nerfed slightly, and they're still so good. Why wouldn't you run these things? The syringe basically heals you passively while you can, I don't know, run around or do a gen, and it's still so unbelievably good. It basically smokes every other add-on in the list. And then we have add-ons that make your healing speed 5% faster. Why would you ever want that over having more charges, right? So I do think right now it's no surprise that almost all of the survivors that can afford it bring the strongest add-ons on the medkits. My idea, until we have some grander rework, is to make all add-ons a little bit more equal, make the syringe and the styptic a little bit less impactful. I don't think there should be an add-on that gives you endurance. I'm sorry, I'll just die on that hill. But to make up for this nerf, make every other add-on on the medkit more engaging and more fun. Not just 5% faster. In this proposed idea that I show you on screen right now, this is just a suggestion, by no means like the only correct way to change add-ons. You have add-ons that actually do fun things. You have the sponge, for example, which gives you the blood of the person that you're healing, so that if you start running around, the killer will be confused because they'll see 2 blood pools, right? They have interesting passives that can help solo players give information to their teammates or find their teammates when they are in need. There's one that lets you heal while you have like an off-the-record like effect, right? So if you want to heal by yourself, you can be a bit safer, and this could help solo players heal and not be targeted by the killer, right? So making the add-ons a little bit more fun, so that there's reasons to run different ones in different situations, I think would really, really help. I think this could be a good first step for medkit add-ons, and this same idea could be applied to other items as well, which right now are sorely missing in variety. And one more thing that could become really problematic if left unchecked for enough time would be slugging. We made a video recently talking about how good slugging is on the singularity in particular, but in that video we already talked that it's not just the singularity. A lot of killers, the majority of killers, seem to do better when you slug it with them than when you play them normally. There are so many survivor perks that work around being hooked or being unhooked that are really powerful and common. If you just skip that part, it seems the average killer does actually better. Our friend Carnivorous, who is a content creator, actually recruited a bunch of killer mains, and they had like hundreds and hundreds of games where they tested normal gameplay where you hook and slugging gameplay where you leave people on the ground. And leaving people on the ground overwhelmingly resulted in faster matches, more kills, and the survivors getting even less gens done as well, if you can believe that. So part of this comes from the fact that the survivor team on average is not very prepared for that. But this is something that I can totally see developing into a more common strategy over time. Unfortunately, we had a change in the game that has made things arguably worse. We now have the yellow Mori become base kit. And what this means is that when there's only one survivor left, the killer can now Mori them. A lot of killers want to see this, right? And it's really, really cool. Why wouldn't you? But I feel like this is actually backfired a little bit. What ends up happening right now is that the killer will down the third survivor, and then when they can't find the fourth, they'll just leave the third survivor on the ground. And I see a lot of matches where nothing gets done, the killer's just looking for the final guy, and this makes the queues longer because the matches are artificially extended, and it's really unfun, I think, for both sides. So please, 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 on top of making things more friendly for solo players, we already suggested, for example, that blindness should not apply to people on the ground, to discourage people from using blindness add-ons that make slugging very difficult for solo players. On top of little things like that, I also really think it would be a good idea to encourage killers to be okay with 3 kills. If you're a killer and you get 3 kills, that's good. You got the majority of them. It's fine if the last guy gets the hatch. In my opinion, you could Mori the third survivor on the ground and that could open the hatch immediately and tell the fourth survivor that it's there, and you get the same points or more than if you kill all of them. I don't know, give some lore justification for it. I don't care. It would be so much better if these 2v1 scenarios where the survivors are obviously going to die had a nice, faster way out. Yeah, it would probably make everyone's gameplay a lot better. Trust me, as a killer, like after a while you stop caring about the fourth kill. Please just end your games a little bit quicker. It's going to be a favor for you and for everybody else. Now, if there's any other thing that you think is going to get worse over time in DBD, please let me know in the comments. Let me know if you think any of these solutions would do anything. I struggled a lot to make this video. I'm really, really concerned about the game's future. I realized that during game modes, this is what the game will be like. Whenever the player base dies out a little bit, there's less new players, and it's just the veterans, this is what the game is going to feel like. Lobbies like what I showed you at the start of this video. And it is really, really scary. I'd prefer not to go and see that part of DBD if it's possible.